Alrighty, so I actually didn't realize this, but we are actually now down to the last two season preview, and I'm actually planning to finish the season preview today because tomorrow we're gonna start doing videos that is related to the upcoming season. I'll do a hot seat index. Probably will also do a prediction video of one of these conference, though it all depends because tomorrow we will also have the start of majority of MLS team that is playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup that is going to happen. In fact, these next couple of days, it's going to be pretty busy when it comes to me watching MLS team playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against their CONCACAF Champions Cup opponents. But that being said, today we are going to first talk about St. Louis City in the season preview. So obviously for St. Louis, it is definitely a new era that this team is heading in, not only with a new head coach once again, but they have a new sporting director. They say goodbye to Lutz, who definitely did well, at least in the first season, in terms of having a record season of them finishing first in the Western Conference and becoming the first ever expansion team to be able to do so. But unfortunately, after that, he kind of did more harm than good in terms of this team. He kind of maybe set this team back a little bit with the roster that he constructed, and now in comes Corey Wray that is coming into this team as a new sporting director. And even though he did came in last year, he is definitely in the midst of cleaning up the mess that Lutz basically created in terms of the roster building that kind of gone wrong with this team. And it just kind of feels like heading into this season, there's going to be progress that is going to be made in terms of this rebuild, and there's no doubt that I think they'll definitely be a little bit better compared to what we saw last season and also the prior season. But is it enough for them to make it to the playoffs? We'll get to it. So last season they finished 8-8-18, and they finished with 32 points. And once again, they did not make it to the playoffs. In fact, the only playoff appearance that they had was back in 2023, and they obviously have never won MLS Cup. Looking at the last three season for them, this is the fourth season for them in MLS. They finished 8-8-18 with 32 points and not make it to the playoffs. In 2023, they finished 8-13-13 and finished with 37 points. Obviously, did not make it to the playoffs. And then in 2023, that was a magical season for them. 17-5-12 and finished with 56 points. But they lost to Sporting KC in the first round. And the writings were kind of on the wall, at least in the first season. As magical as that first season is, and them kind of breaking the record, becoming the first expansion team to ever finish top of their respective conference. You got to remember that year the West was relatively weak, and the fact that they only had 56 points to finish at the top of the West says a lot in terms of how the West wasn't really that strong that year. I mean, in any other years they'll definitely still be a playoff team, but definitely not finish at the top of the Western Conference. And there were telling signs that at least in the second half of that season, things were started to kind of fall apart a little bit. Cracks was definitely started to show with this team, and that crack basically turns into full blown collapse in terms of what we've seen in 2024 and 2025. Hence, that's why they decided to realize that Lutz is pretty much a fraud for this team, and they brought in Corey Wray that hope to be a way to fix the mess that Lutz basically led in terms of this team roster building. Also, let me get my charger here because I just realized that the laptop is about to run out of battery. Anyway, looking at the transfer that they had and some of the players that they, of course, bought. So, they definitely spent a lot of the signings on the defensive reinforcement. It feels like what Corey Ray is trying to do in so far is that he wants to mostly fix the defense at first. Want to make this team a little bit better on the defensive end because that's been a huge issue for St. Louis. I mean, these last two seasons they are not a very good defensive team. And one of the biggest signing that they have is bringing Daniel Edelman from the New York Red Bulls coming to St. Louis. Another move that is kind of a little surprising. I know Daniel Edelman has had his moments with the Red Bulls, and I thought he was going to be one of those players that's going to be staying with the Red Bulls, and then maybe potentially sold off for a huge amount of money. I didn't think he was going to go to another MLS team, but hence that kind of is the case of him going to St. Louis City. Just a complete change of scenery for him. They also got Dante Povaria, a guy that I believe he plays in the Scottish Premiership as well. He's going to come in to hopefully hold down this team at least on the defensive mid position. And then they of course got Rafael Santos from the Colorado Rapids, and a move that they desperately need to make. I mean, left back was a huge problem for the St. Louis City side. So hopefully with this signing that might of course fix that hole. Although Santos doing his time with the Rapids. He was okay. He was serviceable, not amazing, and we'll see whether this move will pay off. And then of course, the probably the biggest acquisition that they have this offseason besides Daniel Edelman is bringing Mamadou Mbake Fall back to this team. And this is a huge signing because we know how good he did during his time with LAFC, and we kind of see the potential that he has, and that's kind of the reason why he kinda got that dream European move to Barcelona, albeit not the main team that is, but he's mostly spending playing for the second team with Barcelona. But there's no doubt that now he's coming back to MLS, hope to continue to improve on his career, that maybe he get another big move to up in the future as well. But also a guy that can really be locked down. He was very locked down during his time with LAFC, and this is kind of a guy that they desperately needed in terms of really locking down the back line that has just been leaky at best for the past couple of years. And then they also got Lucas McNulton off of free agent. See, this is a little bit of a depth that they have at least on the defensive end, and as I always say, you cannot go wrong with more depth on your team. No matter how good or bad it is. Now, looking at players that's no longer on this team, there are definitely some notable player that is no longer on this team. The most notable one has to be João Klaus. So this has been a big decision that St. Louis has had to make for the past season. Where are they going to let go of João Klaus? It's pretty clear that even though I know João Klaus is still their most prolific attacking threat going forward, he's just a guy that it just feels like there's not really too much upside in him, especially he just have never looked the same ever since the injuries that he suffered back in his first season. And yeah, it turns out that this was finally the off season that they decided to let go of João Klaus. They decided to let him go join the LA Galaxy, so it'll be interesting to see how the Galaxy will get the better of João Klaus in that. They hope that they'll get the version of João Klaus from the beginning of his time with St. Louis rather than the one for the last year and two. They also let go of Henry Kessler, Rasmus, Selma Pedro, Jaden Reed, Akil Watts, Alfredo Morales, Michael Wint. So Joseph Zelitsky and Devin Padelfer, who is actually now back with Minnesota after they elected to not sign him on a permanent deal. Although they did sign the permanent deal of some bin as well. Although I think last season he wasn't actually on loan from Minnesota. They actually purchased him outright. But in the case of Devin Padelford, he of course is now back with Minnesota, and I know that for sure because he did play in the game against DC United in a Coachella Valley Invitational game that I attended just a couple of days ago, and he actually looked really good in that game as well, especially the role that Cam Knowles was putting him, make him a more of an attacking fullback, almost in the same role that Anthony Marcanic occupies. Yeah, he definitely looked pretty good, at least contributing on the attacking end, even though I didn't think that was kind of the trait that he has even during his time with Minnesota. Now, look at the first 5 games for St. Louis. They play Charlotte at home to start their season opener and their home opener before they go on the road to face against San Diego. Fun fact for you: this is actually the exact same day that the first ever game that San Diego FC have ever play at home happened. So it's kind of interesting that this is the second year in a row that San Diego will play against St. Louis at Snapdragon Stadium on March 1st. Then they of course play against Seattle, that is St. Louis City, that is, and then they go on the road to face against LAFC before playing against New England at home. So yeah, not a very easy schedule to start the season for St. Louis. All these teams you could say could be teams that definitely has a chance to make it to the playoffs, and I even say the same with New England as well because I am kind of high on the Rams heading in to this season. But yeah, the other team that they face, all of them of course made it to the playoffs. And in the case of some of these teams, they made it to the playoffs and did some good things in the playoffs as well and finished near the top of the Western Conference. Now look at the last 5 games. They play against Minnesota on the road before going on the road to face against RSL. Then they return home to play against the Portland Timbers, return home to play against San Diego, and for their Decision Day matchup, they're going to be going on the road to face against the Houston Dynamo. So no, as tough as the first 5 games that is, but still there are some tough opponents that they do have to navigate. Though it'll be very interesting to see whether or not if they'll still be in the playoff hunt by then. Again, I do expect this team is going to be better heading into this season, and I expect maybe this team could be in the playoff hunt, especially if they decided to make some more signings in the summer transfer window to improve the attack or even on the defensive end, depending on how things goes by then. And if that's the case, they might be in the mix of the playoff run heading into the last 5 game of the season. Now, looking at the strength of this team, I'm gonna go with the midfield. I could have easily gone with the goalkeeper. Roman Burki is still the heartbeat of this team, and that even though he is starting to get another age old, he is still a guy that is at the peak of his power, and a guy that can definitely be a player that if he is going to be that guy just a couple of years ago in that expansion season that St. Louis had, wouldn't be surprised he might be running for goalkeeper of the year again. But yeah, the midfield is definitely pretty strong. The addition of Daniel Edelman definitely helps that. Him partner with Leuven will definitely solidify a very strong midfield as well. The weakness of this team, I would say it's got to be the attack and the goal scoring. I want to say the defense is definitely a weakness, but I do believe that the defensive reinforcement that they made, it feels like it's a huge improvement to this defense, and for once they're not basically hanging out Roman Burki dry over and over again like they did in the last 2 seasons. But obviously, besides that, the attack and the goal scoring, I think, is going to be a bit of a struggle. When you look at what I said earlier about Joao Claus, as much as he hasn't been the same electric player as he was before that injury, he was still a serviceable kind of player. And also when you look at this attack as well, I mean, the replacement for Joao Claus is Simon Betcher. Sure could do well. He has shown before that he could be a goal scorer, but he's also having play a lot of minutes for this team and kind of have limited minutes for this team as well. And then when you look at elsewhere, I think the only other guy that I could say that is literally could be a good attacking piece and a goal scoring piece is Marcel Harto. And even then, he wasn't putting like elite number last season as well. So because of that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised goal scoring might be a bit of an issue. And again, I know last season, when you look at the second half of the season, they got much better, at least on the attacking goal scoring point. Well, that was mainly because Dave Critchley was kind of being a little bit reckless abandon in terms of pushing the team much more forward on the attack, which that was kind of the thing that St. Louis fans wanted to see because they were tired of seeing the boring soccer that Olaf Melberg put in the beginning of the year. But the problem with playing such an attacking style, just push the line up so high, and with the way that this team does not have a defense whatsoever, yeah, you saw how many goals that they leaked last season, especially in the second half of the year. And that's also kind of where we'll definitely get to talk about what exactly is Johan Demay, the new head coach of St. Louis, is going to do. Is he going to go with the approach that Olaf Melberg did in the beginning of the season, or is he going to go with the approach that Dave Critchley kind of go in the beginning of the year? Now, speaking of the defense, that's the first big question about this team is, the defensive reinforcement that they got. Is that enough in terms of improve the defense? I think so. I think it is considered to be improvement as well, and I have no doubt that they definitely upgraded the back line compared to previous season where their back line was kind of almost at times not non-existent. And the only reason why I know last season, I know some St. Louis fans would say, well, we did pretty well at least on the defensive end in the beginning of the season. Yeah, that's because Olaf Melber were playing that very boring and just kind of terrace ball kind of style of player, putting everybody back and not really attack whatsoever. I mean, any team that decided to play that kind of style would always have a good defensive record, but because of that, you sacrifice so much on the attacking end, and that's kind of the reason why St. Louis was having so much trouble in terms of scoring early in the season, and also so why a lot of St. Louis fans were absolutely hating on the way that Olaf Melber is setting up his team and hating the style that just didn't really get the result that they needed to. So the other big question of this team is, they have a mountain of GAM available. I think they're second in terms of the most GAM that any MLS team has getting into this season. So there's no doubt that they have a lot of general allocation money that they can play with, and this is where the new sporting director Corey Wray, he's going to definitely looking to use that game and potentially maybe get some more help, especially on the attacking end. But speaking of the attacking end, the other thing that they could also use is their DP spot and U22 spot. They actually have both of them open. They have a DP spot open from last season. They also have a U22 spot open. Well, Actually, that depends on whether or not if they actually count Jake Garrett Reich spot as clear because he's currently on loan with Auckland City, and it'll be very interesting if this to see, with him going on loan, does the league still set that he currently occupies a U20 spot? I don't think so. I think it would be very unfair in many ways of seeing a player that's on loan and you still count him as a U22 spot. But if that is the case, then it will open a U22 spot, and that means that you have more option to find more attacking threat. And I also kind of had a feeling that, I know some St. Louis fans feel like, this is kind of the time that they need to strike the iron in terms of fixing the attack as well. I don't think that wouldn't necessarily be the best thing, and especially as we head into the summer, that's when the attacking option is definitely going to be much better, and especially this team we've seen in the past, they always tend to go into summer transfer window to get those big signing as well, and I think that's what Corey Wray is thinking about. He's definitely thinking that, well, yes, I know the attack is going to be bad heading into this season, and they don't have a lot of quality, but they'll just need to tread water a little bit until when we get into the summer when the window does open. That's when I wouldn't be surprised they might be using that those premium spot and maybe using some gam to try to improve the attack. So that being said, going back to what I said about Yohan Dame, and I kind of already mentioned this about Yohan Dame, the fact that what kind of game motto and style that he uses. Is he going to use the style that Dave Pritchley used, or is he going to use the style that Olaf Malbert used? I would be surprised it would be neither. I also think that the reason why Yohan Dame was brought to this team, and also the reason why Corey Ray was brought to this team as the new sporting director of this team, is that it feels like St. Louis wants this team to be more of a possession kind of style of team, and the team that kind of similar to what we see with some good possession kind of team like Columbus as well. And I mentioned Columbus specifically because that's where Yohan Deme was as an assistant for the last couple of years under Wilfred Nancy, and hopefully he'll have a little bit more success compared to the other assistant in Laurent Courtois that trying to replicate the Nancy ball style with Montreal and fell spectacularly. So I wonder whether if that's going to be the case where Yohan Deme might replicate the Nancy ball style to this St. Louis team, and that maybe that might be good enough to kind of elevate the team as well. But to replicate that style, it's not going to be easy. You need to still have some quality, especially on the attacking end. And when you look at this team, I mean, as I said, I don't really think this team has a lot of attacking threat that might be good enough in terms of playing that style. And especially when you play that style, in some way, it kind of feels similar to what I said about Dave Pritchley last year, where he kind of played something similar to that with a more possession style and be more aggressive going forward on the attack. But because you do that, that does expose defense much more. And this is kind of where it goes back to the first big question of these defensive reinforcement that the St. Louis team has had. Did they do enough to know that they'll have enough defensive reinforcement that if Yohan Deme decided to play a more aggressive style and similar to what Wilfred Nancy did with Columbus, that he'll trust the fact that the back line will hold up and allow his attacking player to get more forward and creating more goal scoring chances, which is something that they definitely might be lacking unless if they bring some attacking pieces to this team. Overall, I feel like it's still a big work in progress of this team. I think that this team is still probably a year or two away to try to get themselves back to competitiveness. And it is pretty clear that when you look at the move that they make this all season, Corey Ray, the number one priority he's focusing is trying to fix that defense. And once they do fix that defense, I wouldn't be surprised he might really work on the attack and especially using those DP and U22 spot to fix that. So my prediction in terms of how they do in terms of high, I know it's not a really high ceiling of putting them in 10th place, but I don't think this team is ready yet to make it to the playoffs. I mean, if everything goes right, if their defense is rock solid and Corey Ray somehow find some good attacking pieces, then I think that ceiling will definitely go up. But for now, I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be 10th place. Below is gonna be 14th position because again, there's not really too much quality on this team, especially on the attacking end. And you can have a good defense all you want, but if you don't have a lot of good attacking threat, this is pretty much a repeat of what we saw with Olaf Melbertine in the past as well, and that team did not do so well, last season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at St. Louis City in this season preview. As always, let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this season preview? If you're a St. Louis fan, what do you think of strength, weakness, pretty big question, and your prediction and expectation for this team heading into this season? But till then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.